Okay, here is one way to make seams for a basketball. I always drag the ruler tool onto the workplane when I begin a new project. This will clearly display the dimensions or measurement of the objects I place on the workplane. I will only need two shapes for this design, a box and a sphere. The sphere has a diameter of 20 millimeters. I will make this larger by holding down the Shift key while clicking and dragging one of the tiny white boxes that outline the size of the sphere. Next, I will make a copy of the sphere by clicking the Duplicate button at the top left. This duplicate will need to be smaller in scale compared to the original sphere, and you will see why in just a little bit. But first, I'm going to change the color to green so I don't get the two spheres confused. Now I'll scale this down just a little, by 3 millimeters. And I'll hold down the left arrow key to move the smaller sphere from inside the bigger sphere. So you can see the smaller sphere has a diameter of 38 millimeters, and the bigger one has a diameter of 41 millimeters. Okay, next we need to stretch this box out so that it is much longer and taller than the two spheres. I'll do this by clicking and dragging the tiny black boxes that outline the size. We do need to make the height, or what will be the width, of this rectangle be 1 millimeter. And I do this by clicking on the tiny white box with the vertical measurement of 20 millimeters and simply type 1 millimeter. And I'm just going to change the color of this to yellow. Next, I need to rotate the rectangle by 90 degrees. This is done by holding down the Shift key and clicking on the curved arrows above the object. Holding down the Shift key allows you to rotate by 45 degrees at a time. If you don't hold the Shift while rotating, the degrees by which it rotates will depend on the sensitivity of the user's motion. Once I've rotated by 90 degrees, I press the letter D on the keyboard, which is a shortcut for drop to surface. The rectangle was below the workplane after rotating it by 90 degrees. Pressing D sets the bottom of the rectangle flat on the surface of the workplane. Now I'm going to duplicate this skinny rectangle and rotate the duplicate by 60 degrees. Why 60 degrees? To keep it simple, I will have the basketball seams divide the ball into 6 pieces, like cutting a pie into 6 pieces. And since a circle has 360 degrees, I will divide 360 by 6 and get 60. To rotate, I will click on the two curved rotating arrows and then click in the tiny white box that appears displaying the degrees movement. There I will simply type 60 to rotate the rectangle by 60 degrees. Then I will make another duplicate of the straight skinny rectangle, and this time I will rotate it by 60 degrees in the opposite direction. I do this by typing -60 or -60 in the little white box. Next, I will group all 3 of these skinny rectangles together. To do this, I will click and drag a red box around all 3 objects to select them. Then I will click the Group button in the menu at the top right of the screen. Now we'll take the smaller sphere and position it so that it sits perfectly in the middle of the rectangles. To do this, I will select both the sphere and the rectangle group and click the Align button in the menu at the top right. You should see a series of 3 dots moving in 3 different directions around the selected objects. We need to click all the dots that are in the middle to align the sphere horizontally and vertically. Clicking the dot will change the color from black to gray. Now we have a perfectly centered sphere in the rectangle group. Next, we will click just the green sphere in the middle and change it from a solid object to a hole. This allows us to cut out the sphere shape from the middle of the solid rectangle group. To do this, we need to select both the sphere hole and the rectangle group and click the Group button in the menu at the top right. OK, now we need to align the bigger sphere in the middle of the rectangle group just like we did with the smaller sphere. But this time, we will make the rectangle group a hole and keep the sphere a solid. I'll select both objects and click the Align button at the top. Then I will click on the middle dots in each of the 3 series of dots that appear around the selected objects. Once they are aligned, I will select both objects and click the Group button at the top. Now we have seams on our basketball. And to make it complete, we'll change the color from blue to orange. And there you have it, a beautiful basketball. If you want to tackle a more complicated basketball design, check out the one made by user Chen Fine. The designs are also available in the sample projects I created in the MCPL Tinkercad class. Definitely check it out, ungroup the objects, and reverse engineer to see how it was designed and put together.